Hey y'all, hey, it's another episode of Bonafide podcast featuring the one and only Coach Bree Workman. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
You know we blessed to be alive another day, another dollar, another blessing. Hey, let me get my shakers for it because hey. First of all, I love the hair. Slay all day.
Thank
Slay all
you.
day. So let's get to it. So, Coach Bree, can you tell us how you got to where you are in your sports story?
Yeah, it seems like a long time coming for me. It's so crazy when I say this, but I used to be a cheerleader. So I did not want to play basketball at all. I hated basketball growing up. My dad played professionally in the league, and then he refereed in the league. My brother played for a long time. He was more like a city standout. And so everybody just told me pretty much until I was like 11 or 12 that I was going to be like my brother or I was going to be like my dad. And I hated that so much. I'm like, no, I'm going to be something else. And so cheerleading and just like competition was really popular at the time where I'm from, and so that's what all my friends were doing. And so I wanted to be a cheerleader, and then I really didn't take basketball seriously until I moved out to Vegas, and then I wanted to be a cheerleader. My mom was like, "Well, that ain't gonna work. We're gonna have to figure something else out. Cheerleading ain't gonna get you the scholarship." And so I'm like, okay, well, at least let me, be on the cheer team. Let me try out, and then if I make the team, let me do it for 1 year, and then after that, like I'll do basketball. And so, of course, middle of the season, I'm on the sidelines cheering because I made the team, and the basketball coach is like, "What are you doing over here? I'm bigger than everybody else." And she's like, "Girl, you're not in the right spot." And so I ended up playing club ball with them my seventh grade summer, and then after that, it just kind of has been up from there.
It is interesting. You like, I would never thought. I was like, I hated basketball, but I went from cheerleading to, which is very interesting because there's some. I know people would say cheerleading is not a sport. I'm like, it is
Oh,
actually a
it is.
sport.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
because it's like it's competition first and foremost. They have their own like now they have their own like professional cheerleading competition, and they do so many conditioning and trying to get everything. So it's did you ever thought going from cheerleading to basketball? Did you ever see that even happening when that happened?
Well, I didn't want it to happen, but I felt like it was kind of like in my blood. So I figured if I'm gonna have to make the jump at some point, let me at least do what I want to do for now and have fun. And then, I figured because I just kept getting taller and taller, and like not awkward, but just feeling out of place and like uncomfortable around the other people that I was with. And so I'm just like, let me just go and do this because I actually played. My mom put me in basketball when I was in like fifth grade, like somewhere like third, fourth, fifth grade, and I hated it. The girls were sweaty and stuff, and I'm like, this is not for me. I'm like, and so at that point, I knew I hated it because of that, but I think it was also because it was associated with my family, and so I just wanted to have my own lane. And so when I came out here to Vegas, I just think I finally had a chance to do something for me, and nobody knew who I was. So I was just like, okay, basketball is mine. Like I don't have to share it with anybody.
So, and this leads to my question, at the time, you go to University of Arizona. What was that like going to play for University of Arizona, especially they were in the Pac-12 at the time now because everything is so all over the place. But what was that like for you playing in the Pac-12 during that time?
I mean, it was a really cool experience. I mean, in my opinion, a lot of other people's opinions as well. Like we were probably, I would say, one of two of the best conferences in the country, and so we were playing obviously probably the top half and maybe a couple of the bottom were all ranked, at the time. And so you're always playing against top competition. I didn't go to a school that was already at the top. And so I think that for me, it was challenging in that like in high school I experienced winning. That's kind of the culture that I come from. And so to go into something that didn't already have that established, I think was a little difficult. But at the same time, I've always been a leader. I've always been big on like communicating. It's super easy for me to communicate and like kind of direct people. And so I think it just challenged me in ways where I had to like actually step up and be the person doing it as opposed to like just upholding the standard. I feel like it's a lot easier to uphold the standard. You know what it is going in and you just follow suit versus like being the person to set the tone every day, and like that's a lot harder. And so and I still say like we weren't very successful in that either. I'm very honest about, you know, the things that I've been through during my college experience. I feel like my class and the class after me was really brought in to like change the culture and turn things around. And I think we let the culture change us. And so with a lot of the work that I do now, and now that I coach and everything, I can kind of like take all of my experiences and just, you know, give them to kids now, because that's a lot of, I mean, what makes a great team, what makes a winner. It's like, how can you impact culture? It's the hardest thing to do.
You mentioned like when your class, you're there to change the culture, but the culture changed you. What do you mean by it? Like the culture changed you?
I just think habits. I think when you're young and you're not intentional about like why you're at school, you can get swallowed up by so many different things, like partying and like um, drama within the team, drama off the team. Like if you don't know why you're going in and you have a purpose behind it, then when stuff starts coming at you, you just think like this is a part of it and I kind of have to deal with it. But looking back on it, I think that I did a terrible job of like managing myself, managing the people around me, understanding that everybody is not my friend, even though they're my teammate, um, and not looking at it as more of like balancing a business and personal. Because it does, like you have to be friends with, you don't have to be friends, but like you have to have some sort of like respect, or like you have to have some sort of connection at least with your teammates to be successful. But then also there's a business aspect to it too. And just that's not the stuff that gets talked about. You care about like, well, at least that time, I'm sure it's different now with the landscape of basketball being different now. But at that time, it was just kind of like you're getting a free education, you're going there to hoop, and I mean that's it. Depending on your personality, some people might go like, I'll be honest, like I went to have a good time. So that was a part of why I went too. Like I was looking forward to like the social life and everything. And so I just didn't, I wasn't worried about a lot of stuff that I should have been worried about. Like, yeah, so
That's an interesting take because I think a lot of people like to, when it comes to saying sharing their experience, a lot of people try to be like, hey, like, if you do come on there, like, just mention like how great it was. And it's like, no, your story is supposed to be the good, bad, ugly, like,
right.
teaching. Like, and I think that's another thing when it comes, you mentioned in college, a lot of people don't understand how college sports, especially behind closed doors, if they never been through it or they never actually seen it, they would never understand like why some people say go transfer or why some people take a step back because it's like you don't know what happened behind closed doors unless that person tells you specifically. So like, and I think that's one of the biggest things that like a lot of people, they try to sweep it under the rug, but like no, like you got to understand like if you're looking at, if say you're going to find that college or going to that, say you want to take that level, you got to understand like you got to hear it from people that actually been through it so they can tell you like this is what to expect, what not to expect, this is what they may do, this is what not do. So
Yeah, and I think also like it's really hard because everything is nuanced. I definitely learned that more as a coach and coaching at the college level versus like being a player. So like once I became a coach in college and understood what coaches go through and the stuff that they have to deal with on a daily basis, it puts in perspective like why our coaches handled us a certain way or why they got on us about certain things. And it's just like it's hard to tell a kid what not to do. until they experience it for themselves, if that makes sense. So it's just like until you give them like this is the reason why, and now you can make a decision for yourself if you want to take that or leave that, then I think it's really hard, and sometimes you just got to let them go through it. But I always say like you said, take the experiences from people that have been there before and try to learn from it, and you're still going to make mistakes. Like that's not going to just go away, but having perspective and like understanding and definitely listening more than you talk, and just being observant really helps because it is hard and everybody's situation is so different.
Girl, the listening more than to speak, I'm here for that because anytime I hear that, I'm like, ooh, that reminds me of James 1:19. It's like, be quick to listen and slow to speak to slow to anger. So I'm like, ooh, I'm here
Yeah.
for it.
Uh-huh.
This leads to my question. You mentioned, so you are a coach now. What was the transition like going from being a player to the coaching aspect?
I think it was a fun transition for me. Like I've always been, like I said, like basketball kind of runs through my blood. So I've always been about X's and O's. I love like game scheming and like things like that, or trying to figure out, what the other head coach is thinking and what sets they're gonna run and like different stuff. I love film, and just kind of dissecting it. So that part wasn't really hard for me. I think what was difficult for me was just like finding life balance, like work life balance. That was very hard. And then also just like building relationships. Everybody talks about networking, but they don't really tell you how to network and like what's appropriate and what's not. And so I think that's probably like the biggest takeaway, that I took from that time. And also just kind of like being a lifelong learner and not really thinking that you know everything and just going into it with, like your eyes open and just being like open to take from everybody. Like if you look on a coaching staff, you got anywhere from like a video coordinator all the way up to like a chief of staff or a head coach. And I think everybody, of course, has their own experiences, but just because their title is video coordinator doesn't mean that they might be able to give you more game than what the head coach can give. So like I don't look at titles, like none of that stuff. Like I love to learn from everybody. And I think coaching is like the best field to go into, even if you don't want to coach, because it teaches you how to communicate with people that you don't know, like from all backgrounds. It teaches you how to sell yourself. Like I just remember my first time going to the Final Four. I was in an elevator with a coach. I think he was an associate head coach at a school that was in the Pac-12 when I played. So he knew who I was, but obviously I don't really know who he was. So I felt awkward and kind of like intimidated. But at the same time, I was just like, I'm just gonna go for it. Like I need a job. Like I know that we've had some little interaction here and there. So let me just like make this connection and see what comes of it. And I just put myself out there and kind of had like, like a little elevator pitch. And it worked out. Not necessarily for a job at the moment, but that stuff gets passed around. Like if you know how to communicate and be professional, then they might say, well, I know this kid, was looking for a position or a GA spot or whatever, and that's kind of, how it works. And then you end up coming into opportunities you didn't even know, were possible. So.
You made a great point. First of all, I love that answer. And I remember there was a point you made, and it's like, just because somebody got a title doesn't mean you don't have to learn from it. It's like you learn from everything. Like you, especially the video coordinator, because a lot of people don't think video coordinator don't. They just know about videos. Some of them, like they go in depth of it. I mean, if you look at if anybody if ball, how like say a lot of people if they remember how the head coach for Miami, Eric Spoelstra, was a video coordinator for Miami before he was the head coach.
Yeah. So and you have to, like I was saying, like being a life learner, most people don't like those positions because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of hours and everything. But it's like, that's a part of the journey. You're supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to like hunt ways to be better. So don't turn down a video coordinator job. Like, don't think that I'm too good to do this or that. No, like if you go into a program or if you're on a staff, you should at least have experience of everybody on the staff. Like try to know what everybody does, even if you're not in that role. Like I was a director of operations for three years total at two different schools, and so my coach knew that I wanted to be a head coach someday, or like I wanted to be an assistant, and so he was very clear, like, okay, so since you're the Dobo, don't think about it like these are just your job duties and that's it. This is this is your team. So your Dobo duties is like you're the head coach of that. I'm trying to say. So like, you know what I mean? So take pride in what you do every day. And he was like, don't be afraid to like even tell me if you need me to, like help you with something. Like just because I'm in this head coaching position, don't think that you can't direct us. Like literally, like you're director of operations, so you can't be afraid to speak up. And I love that, and that really empowered me. And so, like, I mean, in that situation, I, would just be stressed when, like food orders don't come on time, or like they forget and you have to call ahead and like make sure like different things. Like my head coach at the time would like pick up food and start passing stuff around to the kids. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, some places it's like it's your job to do that and that's it and nobody helps. Like there are situations that are like that, but I've been really blessed to be around coaches that are like really good people and really have taught me like really how to move in this business. And so I'm really grateful for that.
For sure. Cause man, Dobos be having like Dobos like the man, the duties they gotta do, not only just order the food, booking the hotels, booking
Yeah.
say like the say if like I think they do the recruitment thing, like say you got a recruit coming up, booking everything, making sure everything is spotless to the T. And I'm like, y'all got it.
Yep, yep. And it prepares you for the next level. If you want to be a head coach someday, you need to know how to do that stuff. So it's kind of like, no, don't leave any stone unturned.
And this leads to my question, for me, with women's basketball rising, especially with viewership and everything, and you being part of it, what does it mean to you to see the viewership and the support of women's basketball continue to rise?
I mean, it's dope. I feel like I said earlier, I live here in Vegas, and so going to an Aces game is so lit. Like they show up, show out so many sold out games, and just the energy that's in there. And I know it's some other cities where they're like that too, and there's expansion teams and everything coming. So I mean, it's so cool to watch and just be in the atmosphere because I mean, even before all of this, expansion and everything, people did watch women's basketball and watch the WNBA. I just think that social media helped obviously because people can be out there and actually say that they watch it. But before people didn't just really talk about it. But now it's really cool because a lot of women get to talk about what they're doing outside of ball and they get to really like tap into their own personalities and stuff like that. So I think it's big, and I'm curious to see like where we're gonna take it. Because women, one thing I will say, like I talk to my boyfriend all the time just about like marketing women. I think that sometimes like they don't. I don't know if they don't want to or they don't feel like they can market women, but I feel like we're so easy to market. Like women reach so many different things, and I know a lot of it's about entertainment, but if we're talking drawing people in, like I'm a mom, like like I'm not just a hooper or a coach or whatever. So think about how many moms that show up to the game just because their kids want to be there, or just like like there's so many different ways that you can market a female basketball player, and so I hope that they're really like tapped in and trying to figure out how to do that better because we're really great, and women need to be lifted up now more than ever.
For sure. And you made a great point. Yes, women and female athletes, they can reach a whole lot of levels to it, like very marketable.
Yeah.
Because like if you think about it, if you see like all the products, say I'll give an example in NIL, like if say your favorite female athlete are have like the products they're using through NIL, and people see that, do you know how many people go get that product because of that female athlete? Because it's
Mhm.
like the markability. And I mean, shoot, girl, you would have been slaying in the NIL for sure if it happened. I know you would have been
Listen,
slaying.
I say it all the time. I'm like, give me my 4 years back. Please give me my 4 years back. Man, because we definitely would have.
It was, I literally almost see, it's so crazy how like, and I literally would tell some of my former, like some of the girls that I had worked with when I was at the college I used to manage. I was like, all the girls that I had that I managed, they were beautiful. I was like, man, y'all, if NIL had existed when this happened, oh, like, oh, it'd have been a wrap. It would have been like just everything, like all the books and everything. Our food would be good to go. Like, and I think that's another thing a lot of people don't see is like how different, like, say it was in college during our time, where say you couldn't accept, say you had to figure out if, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you could not accept food from anybody. If say somebody buys the food for you, you could not accept it until, because you didn't want to get in trouble or anything.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, we weren't so. I mean, I don't know. Where I was, we at least like we lived off campus, most of us. So we at least had kind of like our off campus money, and then we had our like our cat cards that had money on it. But you could only use that at places that were on campus. But even with that, like I talk to my teammates now, and I'm like, we just like navigating adulthood and like trying to find jobs and like stuff like that, and being up and down financially and like trying to find your way. And I just think back to, I'm like, we were getting like 1,700, 1,800 a month, and but we were still living like check to check. I'm like, what were we thinking? Like, nobody taught us how to manage money, nobody taught us how to, I mean, just have an idea of what to do after college. I feel like if I would have got some roommates and saved up, I could have had at least like 10K as a senior leaving college, and it would have helped me in my transition. So I would have a little bit of cushion. And so I just feel like, you don't always get told those things.
I always think to myself, maybe this is, I was like, they need to, when it comes to schools, they need to teach us about financial literacy. So things
Hmm.
like this won't happen. Things like this, we won't get lost or anything.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
But I think to myself, like, folks ain't ready for that conversation. But I just like, you know what? Folks ain't ready for that conversation. But it's like, you know what? But, and this leads to my question, as a mother and woman and a coach and an athlete, how important is representation?
I mean, it's huge. I think that, I'm learning every day that, the girls that I work with, they're watching me. And just me being around, like with my son, I think that really shows them some of the things that they can do. I don't think it's necessarily about like having a kid, but I just think it's like how you go about it, like how you live your life daily. Like I think those little things, like they take away. And as a kid, you look at different people in your life and you're like, okay, like I'll take that little bit of them that I like, and I'll take this little bit. And they kind of, make this idea of who they want to be before they actually become that. And so I just, think it's really important that I show them, that they can do anything. Like, and more than anything, they can like, I'm sorry, that they can forge their own path. Like it doesn't have to be like I always talk about like how when you're young, people like tell you what to be or they tell you how to be, and then when you get older and you learn like that's not really like who I am, or like that's not really my voice. It's really somebody else's voice that's just been in my head because I grew up with that person or whatever. And so then you have to like unlearn things and like figure out what's you and what's not you. And so I just encourage girls to really like do soul searching, like really hunt again, like hunt trying to be better, like hunt yourself, try to figure out who you are instead of just taking on what people tell you to take on, if that
Woo! Yes, ma'am.
makes
Like,
sense.
hunt for your purpose, for real. Just hunt
Right.
what you want.
Yeah, yeah, because it's hard. And as a young person, it's really hard because you don't really know. But I think starting it early makes a huge difference because as you progress and as you move on in your life, I just think it's easier to identify like who you are.
That
Yeah,
makes perfect sense for sure. And I think, we're so easy to get caught up with like not finding our purpose and trying to, do everything. But it's like sometimes, you know, the things we learn, it leads to our purpose.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely it does.
And this leads to my question, how do you balance motherhood and coaching simultaneously?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think that um, having a village and people that really support you make a huge difference. I mean, my mom shows up for me like whenever I need her to. My mom is really big on you know me not feeling like I have to stop just because I'm a mom. So she encourages me to figure it out. Like if I can take Case in places, if she needs to watch him, if he can't be there different ways. But she just really encourages me to like do it anyways and to figure it out. But it's hard. It's not easy. And what I will say though is that the people that I'm around really love my son just as if he was a part of their family. So I feel like that's a big deal for me too. The people that I'm around, make a huge difference. Because if I feel comfortable, bringing my son around, then I can do, my job better, or I just have better energy, like walking into wherever I am. So that makes a huge difference.
You put it out. It really does take a village to raise.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm here for it because like it's just amazing to see like say any person that coaches and then they balancing parenthood. I'm just like, whew. Like, are there days where y'all like? It's like I wonder. It's like, are there days that they want to relax, or is this like they really love to do it? Something I was like, I don't know how they do it, but I'm here for it. So
Yeah, it definitely is like a balancing act for sure, just like anything. Um, and I think as the kids get older, they're able to do a little bit more by themselves. So it definitely gets better. It's just it becomes a lifestyle, truly. And then you just kind of figure out your flow from there.
I'm like I said, I'm here for it. So, and this leads to my question. I always say that athletes are humans first. But for you, as I stated before, as a black woman, a mother, a coach, and an athlete, how important is mental health to you?
I mean, it's huge. It's why I started. So I started a nonprofit out here in Vegas. It's called Master the Game LV, and we pretty much help girls with mindset training and kind of teaching them about the different ways to cope with stress and talking about the game as well, like actual in-game tools that they can use to cope with stress and just kind of like navigating life, navigating womanhood, like career transitions, all that type of stuff. And so, I mean, mental health is huge because if you can figure out how to master your mind, that carries over to anything. And especially as athletes, I mean, 80 to 90% of it is mental. Like you hear a lot of people say that for a long time. And so, I mean, it's true. If you can't handle your emotions, if you can't figure out how to help your teammates and not just worry about yourself the whole time, if you can't communicate with your coaches in the right way, then you're not going to maximize, your potential doing this sport. And so mental health truly is something that should be pushed first more than anything. And I think, now with the landscape again of how basketball is and how money is coming into it and everything, I think that it's definitely become more of something that people talk about.
Do you hope to see more athletes, speak up about it without the feeling of the pressure of being judged?
Yeah, but I don't think that's gonna go anywhere, because I mean, if we're talking about the older generations, they were raised a certain type of way, so they're gonna have a different opinion about how to go about it, all the way up to my age and younger. So I feel like because all of our experiences are different, you're gonna have judgment. That's not really gonna go anywhere, and so you can't really look at it like I'm being judged. It's just kind of like you have to put yourself out there.
That makes sense because it's because like you hear so many, hear so many people like speak up about mental health, especially the importance of it, and then especially after seeing like say hearing or seeing people report about like, oh, somebody passing because of this, and it's like, why are people just now realizing how important mental health is? Like, why hasn't this been talked about at like before all this incident happened and stuff? So,
Yeah.
but I mean, like I said, it's one of those conversations that a lot of folks ain't ready to talk about and stuff. So, but then again, we trying to be open minded, y'all.
Yeah, and I mean, you can also like look for people, for support. Sometimes it might come from a mentor. A lot of like, again, like I said, like the people that you're with on staff, like if you're coaching or if you are playing at this time, those people aren't just there for basketball. They're there to help you through your journey as well. So those are people that you can tap into. Ask them about their life. Like just like we're, human first, they are too. They're not just your coach. Like they have a whole life that they have to figure out as well. I'm sure they go through stuff just like you do. So tap into those resources. And then I know a lot of schools have like a sports psychologist that's on staff with their athletic department. Or if you don't want to go through the school, then you can always, try to figure something out through your insurance or your parents' insurance. So it's always resources out there that you can go out and try to find help.
For sure. And what's interesting that a lot of people don't talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people don't, I always talk about the important, I always bring, such an importance to have a relationship, like the coach and athlete relationship, like the importance of it, especially like saying, um, so um, one day your athlete is gonna go out and get married, and they invite their coach to their wedding. Like, I'm like, do you know how important it is to have that coaching and athlete relationship where it is like beyond the sport, like, and you bringing up like, coaches is what they're doing. They have a job, but they also can be mentors. I was like, you know what, like being that mentor outside of that sport, like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's what it's about. I mean, most of us do get into it because of that. Like that was my whole reason for wanting to go into college coaching, just because of everything that I went through in college, and just not wanting, if I can help a kid go through the same thing, and that was my whole, purpose for going into coaching in college, because I feel like, they're away from their parents, and college is like one of the most impressionable times of your life as a kid. And so if you can have somebody that, see, for me, when I started coaching in college, I went right out of college. Like I didn't go play overseas or anything like that. So a lot of the girls that I were coaching were like 2 years younger than me and younger. And so because I had that like relatability to them, they were just able to connect to me easier. And so that's where I kind of I figured out kind of like my lane and my passion, because I felt like I was able to relate to them. I understood what they were going through because I just got out of it. And that's also helped me too, like figure out how to set boundaries and figure out how to be a professional and like all of those things as well.
sure. I was like, you mentioned that's such a great point, and I was like, oh my gosh, it brings. I was like, oh my gosh, she just gave me an excellent point about it. I was like, oh, I was like, because I think that's one of the things that doesn't get talked about is like the importance of like that coach and athlete relationship where it's beyond the sport, like where they're actually mentors, they're like say tutors, they're like the mother or father figure to them, especially like beyond the sport. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's so important to have like say that coach or a mentor that believes in you both on and off the court, that asks you, hey, how are you feeling today? How's your studies going? All that stuff. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, like, you know, I have, well, my junior year, my coaches left our school. And so I've had two coaching staffs. So that's 8 to 10 coaches right there where I can, tap into if I ever need anything. And I have relationships with all of them. And they're all at different places in their careers. Some of them don't coach anymore. Some of them are still coaching. And so, like, I can say, like, one of my coaches when I was in Jersey at NJIT, mind you, like, it's just me and my mom. My mom's in Vegas, and so I didn't really have time to do anything over spring break because with coaches you only get like a week for spring break, and you're still recruiting and like doing all those things. And so one of my coaches, she was in Maryland, and so she was nearby, which was only like a couple hours. And so I went and I drove to Maryland and I stayed with her for a whole week. And so stuff like that, like it helps like beyond basketball. Like those are your people. So I always encourage girls like go into the office. Like don't let it just be a one-way relationship. Like of course the coaches recruit you to be at their school, but once you get there, like it's a two-way street. You have to put yourself out there, go into their office, ask them questions about them, um, and just try to like build that relationship beyond the court because it is huge. It's gonna make a huge difference when you know are in your adult life and you're trying to figure stuff out.
Absolutely. And this leads to my question, if there was a word or a phrase to describe your journey so far, what would it be?
A word or phrase. Something I've been telling myself lately is to just keep going. I think, sometimes for me, like I talk a lot, with the kids that I work with about mindset and everything, but I think the reality is that we're all going through the same things. So just as much as I tell them to do certain things or use these tools to like help you out, I find that on a daily basis, I have to do that stuff myself and that I can like get down on myself and second guess what I'm doing and like all of that. And then, like I said, the phrase that I've been saying to myself lately is just keep going. No matter what challenges come up, no matter what happens, like just figure it out solution and just keep it pushing.
Woo! Yes. Where my shakers at? Yes. Man, I can't find my tambourine, but this is my shakers. But I'm with you about keep going. That is one of the biggest things is keep going. It's like, gotta keep going. I don't know why, but I feel like Jen I go singing it. Ooh, I stuttered on that one. That's a blooper. But, whoo! But yes, because I'm here for the keep going because it's like, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I always ask my guests this question. So Bonafide means authentic and unique. So what makes Miss Coach, actually not Miss, but what makes Coach Bree Workman Bonafide and what makes your story stands out?
I just think that I'm able to connect with people very easily. And I also think like I'm me, like I don't try to be anybody else. And I think that I understand my light and I just try to stay true to myself and just try to be, like a connector. I think that's the biggest thing that I can say. Like on my coaching journey, I love coaching at the college level. I coached at the grassroots level as well, like here in Las Vegas, middle school, high school. And so right now I'm kind of pivoting. I started my own consulting business. And so I'm consulting with those kids. So just still coaching, but just in a different aspect because, as a coach, I have to get on them and hold them accountable. And I have to think about all these different other things as well. Like with the team, you have to think as a group. And so I kind of pivoted towards consulting because um, I think that I can impact in a different way a little bit more. And I still have those boundaries in place where I hold them accountable and all those things. But as a consultant, um, I don't have to operate in the same space as the coach has to operate necessarily. And I think I kind of found my lane because I can still give them the gems and like, the keys that I want to give them. But also like I want to push them to doing it themselves. Like at some point, your parents aren't going to be here on this earth with you anymore. Sometimes you're not going to have a coach to hold you accountable. Like, so you're going to have to be empowered enough to do that stuff yourself. And so that's where I'm, more aligned with showing them the tools so that they can uplift themselves and they don't need reinforcement from somebody else to feel like they're, validated or like any of that. And so I think that's really where my purpose is right now.
Woo! Girl, it's the accountability for me. The accountability because, woo, I would say, everyone loves to be held until it's accountability time. So
Right, that's so true. And I just want to mention because you made me think of something else is that I think accountability. A coach told me I always say this. My college coach, it was just a bunch of stuff going on within our team, and so we had a meeting and she was like, you don't have to show up for the BS all the time. Like just because certain people on the team are into stuff and you're around it doesn't mean you actually have to like be in it or you actually have to like operate in it. And I had a hard time like navigating through kind of like chaos just because I didn't grow up in that and I I didn't really know how to still be me, but still have that happening around me. And so what I took from that eventually, I don't think I really understood it when she first said it, but as I grew up, I think now I see it as just like taking ownership and taking responsibility of what I do every day. So I just feel like if the way that you look at life is like taking ownership of your process, then sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror, but at the end of the day, if you do that, then I think that you won't get caught up in all the extra stuff like we. And so that is my biggest like thing to kids is like take ownership in your process and take accountability. It sounds like it's hard, but once you kind of like find your rhythm through it and kind of just like accept things for what it is, then you can actually like use your power. I think a lot of us feel like we don't have power, and that's the furthest from the truth. We have power because we control ourselves, and that means that we can control where we're getting to, and of course, like with God, anything is possible. And so those two things right there are like the biggest thing.
Woo, girl, I'm here for it. Cause like that makes perfect sense about that. Like taking the ownership. If like I would have never guessed that. Like
It's
man,
the hardest thing, yeah, because everybody avoids accountability, like you said. Like people don't want to be held accountable, but if you could master being uncomfortable with, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, then you can get through anything. Because it's like people talk about confidence. And so, from my experience, just like as far as like the education piece of, like mindset training and things like that, a lot of people talk about confidence, and most kids would just say it's the surface. Like, yeah, she seems like she's confident, or like she walks a certain way, or she talks a certain way. And I think like self efficacy is something or is a term really that it should be, not necessarily confidence. And self-efficacy is just the idea that you think that you can like manage the hard stuff. Not that like I have confidence that I'm going to be perfect at everything, because the reality is nobody's perfect at anything. You just figure it out as you go. But self-efficacy is like the confidence that you can figure it out. If it gets hard, I can figure it out. So if that's your mindset, then you'll be able to push past like your fears, because you can figure it out in the end. So you don't have to be perfect, but it's just like I know at some point like I'll navigate through this and I'll be okay.
absolutely. Girl, you mentioned self advocacy. I was like, I haven't heard that term in so long, but it just it's like it coordinates to confidence because it's like sometimes the quietest person can be very confident. You know, it takes sometimes some person that maybe have been shy or scared and stuff, but they learn how to be confident by themselves by having to do this. They had to self advocate themselves. So it's like so, where are my notes? I need to take all the it's like I got all my notes getting taken right here from listening. So
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, because a lot of kids, hear a bunch of things from a bunch of different people, and it's not always coming from the right place. And so I know for sure, like I don't want anything from the work that I do. I'm literally just wanting to pass along the things that I've learned, because I know that it can be life changing. I'm sure a lot of basketball players talk about going through depression and like all these different things, and I think we've all been through it. And so the more we can talk about it, I think the girls just be more confident a little bit in kind of navigating and knowing that other people are going through it, and also talking about it.
big facts right there for sure. Big facts. And speaking of which, Miss Coach Bree, can you let the folks know how where they can support and find you and follow you if there's any upcoming events happening for you?
Absolutely. So my personal Instagram is Coach Bree with three E's and an underscore. And then my nonprofit page is Master the Game LV. And yeah, I post all of our updates there. We have some events coming up. I'm doing an event where we do like yoga in the park and different like activities to get girls kind of like finding their identity and learning how to navigate like stress and like things like that off the court, because obviously we're more than our sport. And so that's what Master the Game does, kind of getting them thinking about who they are outside of basketball, and how they can build a life for themselves.
Y'all be sure to follow the queen here first. Be sure to follow Coach Bree at Coach Bree with 3 E's underscore. 3 E's underscore. And be sure to follow her Master the Game.
Master the Game LV. Yep.
Boom. Master the Game LV. Be sure to follow her and Master the Game LV on Instagram and support a queen. Support this queen right now. Period. And be sure to check out the live replay of Bonafide Her podcast featuring Coach Bree Workman of episode 223. Yes, I did do maybe a blooper, but you know what? This is what happens when you move so much and everything. So bear with me, y'all. But this is a blooper, but this is raw and real. But be sure to check out the live replay of episode 223 of Bonafide Her podcast featuring Coach Bree Workman. You can check that live replay out after this. And thank you, Coach Bree, for coming on the podcast to share your story. Thank you guys for tuning in. Peace.